Hello everyone, my name is Jamie Lindow and I'm with Trachty Building Systems, and today is another part of our webinar series, and we're going to talk today about managing your self-storage. Now you've gotten through building your project and you're ready to open, how am I going to manage? The problem is that you should make a lot of the decisions way up front how you plan to manage, because it will dictate how you're going to build your mini storage. Now today I'm with Steve Ajewski. He's our marketing manager here at Trachty, but he also is an owner and a manager of a self-storage. So we're both going to talk today about self-storage and how different things you have to think about to manage. And I'm going to send you here to Steve to start us off.
All right, well, thanks, Jamie. My name is Steve Ajewski. I own and manage, I manage one site, and I've got two more with my partner that are about an hour from my home. So I'll be talking a little bit about those today as we go through our presentation. So let's get it started. So the first thing you want to think about is how are you going to manage it? So when you think about how you're going to manage your site, we're wondering about this because it does impact a lot of things that affect your financials. What's your site layout going to be? How's your office going to be? What are your monthly expenses going to be? And ultimately, those decisions are going to impact the bottom line and the financial forecasting and construction budget that you're going to be passing on to your bank before you can build. So let's step back. What's involved in managing a self-storage property? It's not rocket science, but it does have a couple things involved here. Renting the units first and foremost, and that will be a little bit bigger lift when you're first starting. You'll have more people coming in when you've got an empty property. Collections and overlocking, that's a really important part. You'll be doing that on a monthly basis, making sure everyone's paying. Then you'll have maintaining the property. Snow removal is a big one for those of us here in the north for a number of months out of the year. Lawn care, that's ongoing during the summer, cleaning in between the rentals, and the bookkeeping. I probably spend a couple hours a week on mine, making sure we've got all the bills paid, entering in checks from customers that pay that way. So that's kind of some behind-the-scenes work you do. Some of the things that are on this list are things where you've got to do them at a specific time, like meeting customers. Other things are a little more flexible that you can do when you have time. Then I would say, when you're thinking about how you're going to run this, you want an honest assessment of what do you want to do with your self-storage business. What do you like to do? What do you have time to do? And think also about, how will owning the self-storage business affect your personal life? Do you have to travel? Do you like to travel for leisure? Do you need to travel for work? If you're away from the property for a month, for a week at a time, how are you going to handle that? So, as far as the different ways you could manage it, the way I see it, I can break it down into about 4 different groups. The first one, manage it yourself. That's what I do.
And why'd you do it that way?
I'm a cheapskate.
And you had no money.
I had no money.
And you just got in it, and you needed an SBA loan to get into it, and
right.
That's why you did it, because it was the only way it would work, right?
Yes. And
okay.
This is for small sites and for just starting. I think this is pretty common.
Okay.
Next way that I would list out is hiring a manager.
That's what I did.
Yep.
I hired a manager because I have a full-time job. I couldn't do it, so I had hired somebody to run it. So that is my first swing at it when I had a larger project.
Next thing I put on my list is having an on-site manager with the department. We don't really advise that. You don't see much of it anymore. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to this.
I owned one that way. I would never build that ever again, but I had one that way at one time in my life.
And the last one is hiring a management firm.
And we're going to talk a lot about that, because a lot of people on larger projects are just going to hire somebody because they don't want to have anything to do with it. So we'll talk about that too.
So managing your own property, doing it my way. Lowest cost, builds equity. If you like being hands-on, because I'm kind of that guy. I like fixing things. I like doing stuff myself. That's great. Problem with managing it yourself, one of the big problems with managing it yourself is, for one, my property that I manage is less than a mile from my house, and so I can go over there. When someone's got a problem, I'm right there. But if you're looking for opportunities in a wider area, it might be pretty difficult to say you're going to do it yourself. The other thing is, I'll say that mine, when I opened with 80 units, it was not that much time to do it. I have 280 units right now, and this place is just about full. And it really does take an increasing amount of your time when you start getting that full. There's my property. That's what that looks like. That's what I'm running on a day-to-day basis.
Now, if you look to hire a manager, so what happens is you got to build the project to get it started, and then you want to hire a manager to be able to run it. You got to teach the manager how to do it, and the way I had to teach is I already knew how to run it to teach them, but a lot of people who don't have experience in running them, that they just hire somebody to try to figure it out. One of the mistakes you want to do is a lot of people don't want to understand the whole rental process, and that's a big mistake. You should always know how to rent it yourself. Now, when you do hire a manager, you can have problems. We have my facility I owned years ago in Florida. I've caught my managers cheating from us. I've had other problems. You do have the expense of the people, and we're going to touch on all these areas. But like if you're going to build the one that has a office, like here is one right here. This is a 30 by 30 office, which would be a very standard size that has inside bathroom, and a person can run it and be there whenever you need them. Now, what I'm going to talk about today, because I'm just going to show you a snapshot of that facility, Sun Prairie Self-Storage. It's kind of unique. I have only a manager that works after work from 4:30 to 6. That's the only time we're open, and over the weekends. And look at the history here on this sheet. In the pre-pandemic, most of the people had to meet us. We made an appointment. I had a kiosk on the site, and I had 76 people there in 2019 that ran a kiosk. And you could rent online, but it wasn't that popular. 2020 kind of changed. I had more people with the kiosk than website. But now this website is, like, to me, the absolute no-brainer. Look at the website is increasing and is beating the kiosk, and it's mitigating when we have to move them in. And a lot of people are becoming more familiar with the move-in process. So there's just what we're seeing, a history of one site.
Yep, that's definitely I'm seeing it on our sites as well.
Absolutely.
People are really comfortable with moving in on the web, and if it's not over the web or through the kiosk, I'm also doing a lot of them over the phone, where I can do the rental from my house, and we don't need to meet in person. Meeting in person is key.
Here's different offices. Here's an office I was just at, it's Tennessee. Nice. He did it 2 floors just to get better visibility. You'll see in some of the other webinars we talked about some of the offices. Some of the offices inside have been very fancy. There was a huge push before the pandemic to make your offices as fancy as possible. There's less of that desire now because a lot of them are looking to go contactless and do it differently. But now, if you have a very large site where you have a manager, you have somebody there all day that have a higher level of security. That's the perceived value, but I don't believe it's that much. I believe the cameras are the biggest security. But the problem that I always had with people living on the site is that they burned out of it because it was a prison. They couldn't get away from the facility. And the people who would be there, be your managers, isn't the most desirable. You want to hire people who are very sales and people orientated, because you do want to close a sale, especially their phone skills ability. And so last year was our first year ever. We never sold one with an apartment since I've ever worked here. And so it is really a thing of bygone era.
Yeah, I'll say, as you know, I haven't worked here as long as Jamie, and when we were putting this together, I could not think of a place where we had a photo of one with an apartment. That's how rare they are. Yeah, anything I found was ancient.
Yeah.
So there's just not much of it there. The last part of it is, what if you run it with a management firm?
And a large number of people want to do management firms. And they want to do it because they hire it out. They got a pro to take care of it. They have their own model in which to run it. They usually have a very sophisticated program of raising the rates and how they perceive their sales to be. Now, I have had There is a lot of cost to it. They'll say there's only a certain percentage of management fee, but there's actually a lot more cost because you got to pay for their people, and you also have to pay a marketing fee. Now, I own one in Utah that I do not touch. I don't do anything. I'm a minority shareholder, but a management firm takes care of it. They do a good job, and I just receive a check. So some people think it's great. But I don't make as much money as I do when I run it myself. Now, one of the problems people have when they hire a management firm, it kind of drives them crazy because they run it a lot different than I would run it. And so when people transition, you just got to let it go with them. Now, here's one here in Wisconsin that somebody managed with Extra Space. That's just one of the companies. But there's a large, if you go to a show in Las Vegas or one of the big shows, SSA, ISS, you'll see a lot of different companies. Like here's just a plethora of ones that will do a management firm with you. This little one in the middle, Storage, is one that does it with no people. It's a remote managed company. And that's kind of new, that's out there. But that is a total viable thing that a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, it's a different way to do it. Interesting thing, as you've probably heard us say in other seminars, is there's not a lot of brand recognition. So, unlike saying I'm going to be a McDonald's versus opening your own burger stand, people mostly just rent from the one closest to them. So the brand recognition is not really one of the big reasons people go with management firms. It's partial.
Each one of these companies would completely disagree with what
they
you're
would
saying.
disagree with that,
Just
but
so you know.
But you are able to do it on your own too. I would say, okay, so the next big question, and this is an important part of renting today with non-contact rentals. A lot of our new customers will ask us, do I need management software? And the answer is a very emphatic yes. Yes, you need management software. Unless you have like a dozen units in the cornfield and you don't ever plan on growing, yes, you should have management software. So why? I'll say that starting with 80 units, I can't imagine having done it any other way. It's your point of sale software. This is where you track what's in all of your units. It's your billing. We believe that credit cards are an essential part of running a storage business. When you have credit cards, you have a better way to frequently raise rates over time. You don't need to worry so much about that. People stay longer with credit cards. They pay more on time when it's automatic. So you definitely want to stay with that. But that software is kind of the heart of your business. It does the auto billing and rate management. And you also, if you're going to have any kind of access control, this is the brain that's connecting to your gate software and keeping those things all working. What the software does not do, typically you're still going to need QuickBooks. And my experience is you will still need an accountant too. So the management software is a point of sale system. It is not a replacement for QuickBooks or whatever accounting end. It tracks just the income side of things. When you start looking at software types, historically, there's been I would categorize into two groups. Software that you're going to load onto your PC, which in the past you would buy a license to it, you'd pay for the software, and then the program would be on your PC in your office. The data's on your computer, and if you're trying to have this hooked up to a website and your connection goes down, your website is no longer connected to your software either. That's how mine was set up when I first started. And there was construction going on down the street from me. And my internet kept going out, and every time my website would go down, and that was kind of ugly. I then switched to a cloud-based system. This is the way of the future, or the way of now. I believe that just about everything you're going to find today is going to be cloud-based. The reason you want that is, yes, your data's backed up by them, not by you. You should still have back up your computer, but it's one less thing to worry about. And also, if your computer goes down, something goes wrong in your house, your internet goes out, your power goes out, your website is still going to be integrated into it. When you start looking at these software packages, and there's a number of good ones, these are some of the things you want to think about. How does it have a system for automatically changing the rates as you get full? Just like the airlines are going to charge you more for those last couple of seats, you want to charge more for those last couple of storage units. Does it integrate with your gate system? So if someone pays their late bill, now the gate's going to work. If they're behind, the gate's going to block them out. If you have a kiosk, is it going to work with the brand of kiosk that you want to buy? You want to check and see what your credit card processing is going to cost. That's kind of an overlooked expense that you do want to think about when you're doing your budgeting. At my properties, my credit card processing costs more than my insurance. Everyone thinks to budget for insurance, but you see people not
Way
thinking.
more than your insurance.
Yeah, so
mine is quintuple.
My credit card
Sextuple.
processing is my most expensive
Yeah.
budget item, other than my mortgage and taxes.
Yeah.
Your software, in most cases, is going to be where you're going to want to have your website. Your website is a super important tool for renting units now, and that should, chances are your software vendor should have that, and you should get it. Do they have a mobile app? I do a lot of my management of my site right from my cell phone too, because I'm not always near a computer. There's an example of what you might see in your software. This is my property. This is an example.
Blue
is-
means rented,
yeah.
so you're happy.
I'm pretty happy right now. Blue is rented,
rented.
green is
And red
vacant.
owes money.
Yeah, and there's
Okay.
so I'm in pretty good shape on that property. This example is Sirisoft, but there's a number of good ones out there. Okay, our next question: do I need access control? And my answer to that is it depends. I think that one thing you want to look at is, do your competitors have gates? I feel that when you develop a storage facility, you want to take it up a notch from what's around you. I think that's typically a pretty good strategy. So if your competitors have gates, you need gates. And even if they don't.
Well, there's more to that. You should always plan a gate, even if you don't have enough money. Let's say you're where you didn't have any money in the beginning.
Right.
But at least plan where the gate's going to go if you do, if you're just going to start with one building, for example.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you have plenty of distance. I've mentioned it on other webinars. But to me, a gate is a collection device.
Yep.
It is not security. It's how we collect money, because we don't let them on the property.
Right.
And that is really what its goal is.
And yeah, even if you don't put it in on your first phase, you want to think about where it's going to go. You want to have those conduits underground, make sure you have space for it. I got a little greedy on mine. I put in a couple too many units, and when we finally put in the gate, I had like 3 or 4 units outside of the gate.
Yes.
When you look at gates, there's a couple different kinds. The slide you're seeing now is showing you a sliding gate. These are more common in the south. They're less expensive. They can be a little slower depending on the gate you choose. But these slide right across, and they're very common in the south. A vertical pivot gate is more common in places with snow. This will get up and out of the snow. It won't work perfectly every time. On mine, if snow gets into the safety sensors, it can occasionally be a problem. But these are more reliable in northern areas, and they're also fast. So as we said, yeah, with gates and your keypads, one of your major benefits of them is just that it locks people out instantly. If I don't get over there and put the red locks on, the gate's blocking them anyway. You want to think about, are you going to have some separate zones? Sometimes people will have additional keypads in their climate control buildings. So if you rented an exterior unit, you can't get in the buildings. You can have a little more security with that. And you want to think about, consider your weather when you're looking at this whole thing. On my property, when I have had any issues with the gates and keypads, it's typically been related to ice and snow affecting the operation of something, keypads or gate. And probably the final note here is I'll say the gate is not going to stop a determined thief. They will tailgate in, they'll find a way in. So you're not depending on that for your security. That really is for you for collections more than anything, and marketing value.
Here's an example of somebody robbing a unit and they got in somehow.
Yep, it can still happen. Which brings me to the next point. Tenant insurance. Not going to dwell on it long, but you should probably plan on offering tenant insurance. You want to put that responsibility back on customers and make sure that they know that you're not insuring your
A lot
stuff.
of the REITs, when you get third-party management, they force the customers to take it. Or you have to prove that you have your own homeowner's insurance policy to not have it.
Yep.
And so,
Yep, some people like the selling insurance to make a little money on it, but I think the bigger value really is that they are taking responsibility for that, not you.
watch out, a lot of the third-party management system companies, they get to keep all the profits from it. So you got to
Did not
read
know
that.
that.
What?
I did not know that one.
Yeah.
All right, so gate technology. Just a little primer on what's going to be, some details with your gates. Usually you're going to have a separate controller box. And so if you're questioning, you say, hey, what does a gate cost? You need to be pricing out not just the gate motor, but what is the controller that's probably going to be in your office that's going to run it. I've got one called the Falcon XT from PTI. There's lots of different hardware out there. Some people I've heard of using like key fobs at the gate, which I would say I absolutely would never want to do that. You want codes, because if you're doing contactless rental, how are you going to get a key fob or a key card or when they lose it? So you want codes that you can give them over the phone when something is screwed up. Your gate and your software, it's going to require that you have a good internet connection, reliable internet connection at the storage facility.
In a lot of remote areas, that's a big problem.
It is. Where my property is, there was no wired internet. The local cable company wanted $40,000 to get a cable line out to my property. So I have a cellular modem, which is kind of sketchy. It works, but not well. And as we said before, plan for all those conduits ahead of time. In my properties, I typically have my grading guy trench out for the conduits, and the electricians lay in the actual conduit and do that later. But you want to make sure you have that in your bids. On my first property, I forgot that, and that was one of my overages. Next up, automated rentals. All right, automated is the way to go.
Here's an example of a large player down in Chicago, and the large REITs and large players will always have on what they've changed to their website. It immediately goes to rent, because our whole industry has gone to rent, just like the hotel industry. Boom, here it is, rent now. And that's what you're seeing at this, the lockup storage here. Now, that's for a large player. Steve's going to show you his.
So here's an example of a website from one of my locations.
Yeah.
So when you look at this, we have the call to action right in front. Not quite as strong as the other one with the unit sizes, but we've got the option to reserve or rent a unit right there. If you click on either, it's going to bring you to this page. It actually brings you the same page. And you can see that we only have a button actually to rent one of them right now, because everything else is full on that property, and we need to raise our prices.
Of course you do.
But that's what you're going to see. Now, we have an interesting problem that people often reserve a unit when they really want to move in, and that kind of makes a mess. So some people don't even allow reservations, especially if they're as full as we are.
I have taken off the reservation button. You only can reserve. If you want it,
rent.
you come in.
You rent.
Excuse me, not reserve. Yeah, offer. You rent now. It's over. I get paid. Boom, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
It's so much better, so much simpler. Now, when you're opening and have a zillion units, you're going to do anything to get them in. So, our newest facility, we're leaving it there, but we will turn it off at some point.
Yeah. On my property, I'll let you reserve a unit up to 2 weeks in advance for a $10 fee, which I really probably should stop doing. Because
I do a full payment.
Yeah.
You're totally rented. You can just save it for 2 weeks. Your $10, you're going to get abused all over the place.
Yep. All right, and then when you click the rental, then you end up on this screen where you fill in 1 page worth of information, what kind of unit you want. Your next page, you would pay for it, and that's that's what that looks like. Now, when someone, after they go through this, and I don't have a slide to show this, what they're going to receive in the email is a digital signature request, and so they're going to receive their lease, and they have to agree to it and sign it. They'd sign it on a touch screen. You can do it on a laptop or a cell phone. It's really easy. Even any customer I've used with it, they really don't have any problem with it. And then they receive an executed copy, and they know their unit number and gate code. So that's a pretty cool system.
Now here is a kiosk. Now I have projects that have kiosks and ones that don't, and you have ones both that have and don't.
I've got both types.
And I am a fan of kiosks because even though by far the most important is your website to be able to rent now, but I like the kiosk because it also solves other problems. And here's an example of some. Here, when the people come in, they can rent. Also, I consider it a cash collection business because I own one in the part of town that's a little bit sketchy, and a lot of people come, the gate doesn't work, they're denied access because they owe me money, and they don't have a credit card that works, and they come in and pay in cash. And that's why I like it to collect cash. And the more sketchy the neighborhood, the more I get paid in cash. And I like it because that solves the problem, and that immediately allows them to get back into the property. It does dispense a lock. They can rent if they don't want to do it online. You'd think they do it online. They still will use the kiosk.
Yeah, I'm surprised how many people come and pay their rent every month at my kiosk when
they
they
do.
could just do it from their phone or
But
at
they
their
don't
house.
do that. I don't know why.
I don't get it. Why are you
don't
coming
care.
out in the middle of winter?
I don't care. I got paid. Who cares? So that's
true.
my deal.
That's true.
So so next, a lot of people worry about the cost of a kiosk, and there is a monthly fee. True, but it's way cheaper than people. And I minimize how many people I have, and I will use any technology I have to help improve or solve the problem for the customer.
When I started my facility with 80 units, I did not have the kiosk. And then I added on again another some 80 units or so, and I didn't add it. And I added it on my third phase. And I don't think I made the wrong decision not doing it right away, but I'm glad I left room to put one in. Because by the time I did that third phase, where we added another 120 some units, and I just rolled it into my financing, so it was very painless. And I recommend getting a kiosk. So when it comes to non-contact rentals, just to summarize, a kiosk, you can do it through a website. You offer both options, and any of those are good, and also the phone. And I do a lot of them over the phone now. And now, even when I do them over the phone, they still go back to my kiosk and buy the lock. So it solves that problem. If you don't have a mechanism to sell the lock with a kiosk, what a lot of people will do is they will hang a lock in each of the empty units. And so that's a way to get around it if you're not going to do some sort of lock dispensing kiosk. But no, once the pandemic hit, that's when we really saw that completely take off. Now, some of the pros and cons of these non-contact rentals. You're going to get more rentals. You close the sale immediately. They call me. I don't have to schedule it. I don't have to meet them there. I don't have to figure out when my kids are in scouts and when my wife is home to watch the kids. If you have kids, the non-contact is super helpful. Especially if you're managing it yourself. So more rentals, less work, and the machines don't negotiate discounts. If they call me to pay when they're behind, I'm kind of a softie, and I waive that late fee. Or, oh yeah, I'll give you that discount, yeah, I know you, or so and so knows you. You know what, the machine doesn't give money away. It follows rules. The cons is when you rent from that machine, your customers don't read your rules, and you don't get to tell them all the important things, like no food in the unit, no motor oil on my floor, and all those other things. They don't have a face, and they really don't care what they do.
And I've had a problem I have outside RV parking, and the three problems I had all rented via the kiosk, because then I was dumped with a boat that was pretty beat up. They didn't know how to get rid of it, so they dumped it on my property and ran. I've had also a bad trailer person that tried to live in the facility that I had to get rid of. So you do get some problems.
And,
there's no question about it.
It may or may not take a picture of their ID, and even if you had one that does have the ID scanner, they may or may not actually use it. They don't. Yeah, you don't really have a lot of control for who rents. This is one of my customers who came in through the kiosk, and this was a problem. This is a 300 and some gallon tote full of used motor oil, and for some god-awful reason, grease containers from a restaurant, which were leaking under the wall into the next unit and getting on someone's mattress. So this is the kind of thing that you are increasing your exposure to.
Yeah.
So that said, though, I still don't regret it.
Those are some of the downfalls.
That's the downfalls. But 99% of what you get through there is great.
Now here's a kiosk that's on the outside. Some of the kiosks sold can be out to expose to the weather. I personally wouldn't buy one that way because I believe the weather will kill those things, and I don't want to have maintenance issues with these machines. So I like them enclosed.
And it's really not very pleasant standing outside in Wisconsin in the winter to do that.
Well, in the summer in Arizona.
Right. So, yeah.
And the sun bakes on it and big other problems.
So here's an example of another kiosk. This one's built into a corner of a Trocti building. This is my property in Wisconsin Dells. This one, we actually, instead of using a full kiosk, we put in an iPad mounted to the wall that's locked onto our website. So someone can walk in here and rent a unit using our web device, but the lock is still provided with the rental. It's waiting in each unit. So it gives them a gate code and stuff. Doesn't print anything, doesn't give them a lock, but it is possible to do something like this. We don't get as good of usage on that model as we do with the kiosk, though. So we'll probably upgrade that to a kiosk. Another way to do it, I think I actually like this better because it's more visible. This is another customer in Indiana who built it, their little mini office sticking off the end. So it's got a little heater air conditioner in there and highly visible, nice signage. They did the signage very well. Notice on this one, again, you have plenty of room to park and turn around outside of the gated area.
Yeah. Now, what I do is also, even if you have an office and manager, I use it as an alternate manager. So here is a vestibule. When you come in the office, there is the kiosk to the right. This is the brand new type of kiosk. And if we're not open, then you use the kiosk. If we're open, you come through the gate. And so this one and then the other one showing you a finished one. And so whenever we're closed or the manager has to leave, you are always open, always running. That's the way I look at it. Now, over the years, we have had a lot of people have a lot of different security issues that they've looked at and management ideas. One of them is a lot of people did door alarms, okay? And also the door overlock process. We're going to talk about that. We're going to first start with a lock.
All right, so yeah, door locks, as we kind of alluded to, you can sell them or do you do them free with your rental? One of the things you want to think about when you're deciding if you're going to sell locks or not is if you're selling them, now you're going to have to be now you're going to be collecting sales tax. So if the locks are the only thing you plan on selling, you may want to consider just collecting an administration fee or a move-in fee. That would, in most states, you can check with your accountant, but that should be a non-taxable fee. You don't need to bother collecting sales tax then. And then how you distribute those for online rentals. So you want to think about how those are going to go out the door.
Yeah. Now, I personally like to give them a lock. I always give them a lock because I want to give them a round disc like you're showing here in this photograph, because I had people use really cheesy locks and they had a lot of theft. I've had multiple thefts over the 30 years I've been a manager. And so I don't like them using their lock if possible. And I like symmetricality, that all the locks look the same.
Yep.
You know.
So that's your standard lock. Here's what the lock looks like on one of our stainless latches. That's one of the other options you can purchase with your building. The locks I use are from Chateau. There's a lot of good companies out there who sell locks for the industry. Yep, those round disc locks.
And so back to a lot of 15, 20 years ago, everybody put door alarms on their properties for large projects. The one that I like is this Track It. And that's one because they're less hard to break into. But I'm not a huge fan of the door alarm. Some people still like it. That's just one thing. Other people have used wireless ones. And here's an example, the next one of one from PTI with a wireless, if you want to. That's up to them. But a lot of people have gotten away from it over these years.
So the bigger trend now that you hear a lot about at the trade shows is electronic overlocking. So I would say there's two leaders in the industry. There's probably others that are working on it, or that you might see at some of the trade shows. The Janus Noke system is probably the one that we've seen the most excitement over. So it uses Bluetooth. It connects to phones, and it has a mechanism. Here you can see what that looks like installed.
Yeah, installed in a quarter system we had in Cleveland.
Yep.
And
so
then
that will work on a Trocti building.
Yeah. And then the other one is a Door Boss by PTI, and we did a project in Massachusetts. Here it is, where it actually shuts the latch and opens the latch for you.
Yep. So the electronic overlocks, kind of like the gate, there's an immediate benefit with that, with the overlocking for collections. If they haven't paid, not only can they not get through the gate, but now they can't even get into their unit. The weakness with the gate is that if someone wants to sit around, they can tailgate in and get into the unit, even if the gate was locked out. But if you didn't lock them out yet, that's there. The other thing is when they pay, then they can immediately get in. So that's kind of the benefit of those electronic overlocks. I think the biggest thing operationally. And there's some marketing value to the alarms and the security that they add, but I think that's more of a marketing value. The problems with these things.
Well, a lot of people think that if I get these, it's going to solve all my problems.
Yeah,
it's not going to solve all your problems, because you're still going to have to sweep the unit. You still got to have, a lot of people are under this misnomer they don't have to do anything, and that's really not true, because you got to check the unit, sweep the unit. People are going to leave junk behind. You know, our industry, which we don't talk about much, is that The people move out and they leave you 3 things that they don't know what to do with, and you're stuck with them and you have to get rid of them. So if you think they're perfectly swept out each time, is not true.
You're going to know where the dump is, and you're going to be thinking long and hard about getting a dump trailer.
Dump trailer, that's which I own, of course. And the
Yeah.
so
I was going to say, there's a lot to go wrong with it, too. On my site, I don't have any of the electronic overlocking, but the majority of my little headaches that I have with my property have to do with my gate and how that runs in bad weather, customers who don't know how to they don't know how to punch their code in, they lost their code. The computer that runs the software is not talking to the gate because my power went out and Windows updated. There's always some little thing that you're fixing, and that's a relatively simple system. We're talking like 2 PCs and a controller and a gate. Now imagine having 280 units, each one equipped with a Bluetooth battery-powered device being operated through apps that your customers have on their phones. So I see how there's some benefit, and I can also see that there could be some interesting situations you might end up with.
Are you
this new
old
technology.
like me and scared of it, or just?
I'm scared of the old people like you.
No, that's very valid.
So what I use on my property, and we recommend this one. This is a neat option for the lower cost way to get into remote unlocking and locking. The DaVinci lock is a product that's out there. It uses a combination. You can see here on this close-up, there's a serial code on each one of these. Then what you end up with is an app. You've got this on your phone, or there's a desktop version. Here's what the desktop version looks like.
So the customer is 54 days late. They get their truck. They're going to be auctioned on Tuesday, next Tuesday. They come in at 7 at night, and for some reason they're shocked. They paid, but then they're shocked there's a red lock on it, and they need it today because that's when their truck's there. In absolute panic, okay? And this is how you solve the panic.
And your manager is camping 4 hours away with his family.
That's you. Okay.
That's me.
So what happens is with the software program, when they do pay, it's going to tell them the code in which to unlock it themselves.
Yep. It can either be automated like that with some of the software packages, or at worst case, like on mine, where I get a notice when they pay online. All these automated ways, they give you a notice on your phone. So if they text me and they say, hey, there's a red lock on there, I can just anywhere I've got internet access, I can just pop onto my phone, find their code, verify they paid, and we're good. And then they return the lock.
Yeah. And even if they steal the lock, it's $15 or something.
Hopefully
and
they return the lock.
I know. But I've found that most do. And so I don't care.
Yep.
Because I've charged you so much in late fees already anyway. I'm covered.
Yeah, you got yours. You did okay. They rented for 9 months. You're good.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's talk about security cameras. So security cameras are hugely important. Our advice would be that is the first and best line of security. They're not that expensive anymore. There's some good deterrent value. At my property, when we were under construction in my second phase, the construction workers left a bobcat at the edge of the property. Someone had been trying to steal a lot of equipment in the area at that time. They'd been ripping off the John Deere dealer. And when they came to try and steal that bobcat, they got into it, they started it, and they tried driving it away. They were afraid to drive past the cameras. Instead, they tried to drive through the lawn, and they got it stuck in a foot of mud. And because of my cameras, which deterred them from just driving out the front entrance, they still have a bobcat. So
when problems happen at the job, at the site, you have theft, you have anything, how you always find it out is looking at the cameras, and then you correspond it to your gates, because you should always keep that in and always keep that out, because I know who came in and when they leave. And then I have a picture, and I've caught everybody.
Yeah,
I've caught everybody.
I've had someone who wrecked a unit putting a boat in, and I just sent them a link. Here's your video. That'll be $300. So that's no arguments there. All right, so you want to be sure you can remote view those. That's really handy if you can do that. You need good internet at your site for that to work. You can do them professionally. You can do it yourself. I do them myself. Jamie thinks I'm nuts.
Yeah.
What you should know, though, whether you're installing them yourself or having someone else do them, a couple little basics about the security cameras. Most of them are going to use standard networking wire, standard Cat5 or Cat6 wire. They call those IP cameras. The IP stands for Internet Protocol, but basically it's digital. It's a network device. That networking wire can go about 300 feet. Beyond that, you need a network switch. Now, these cameras are normally using a single wire that's going to have both the power and the data. They call that system power over Ethernet. So you can jump the signal through, I think, up to 7 switches around a site. And everywhere, the reason why the switch is important is that wherever you're going to locate a network switch, you're going to need power to it. And the last switch before the cameras, if the camera's going to plug into it, that needs to be what they call a power over Ethernet switch. And that's going to provide like 48 volts direct current right into that wire too. If that's making your head spin, you definitely want to have someone else install them. Now, the old way to do it, they would have used coax cable, cable TV wire. That stuff could go further, but usually it doesn't have the signal quality. There's a couple digital versions that I've seen out there, but when I've been shopping for cameras, you basically want to be looking for Cat 5, Cat 6 wire. That stuff is really cheap, and you can easily cut it and put your own ends on it, so it's much easier for a do-it-yourselfer than cable TV wire. For the record, this is the camera system that I've been using on my properties. $2,600 for a 10-camera system with a DVR. And then I usually have to buy another $1,000 worth of hardware and networking equipment to make it all work.
Okay, I would have the largest. Yeah, you have the largest DVR you can with the mega terabyte holding capacity, because I want it to last at least a month, because you won't find out the problem until 2 weeks later.
Right. No one's watching these. These are, if nothing goes wrong, you'll never look at the footage. This is an example. This is a screenshot of viewing mine over the web. It's pretty boring footage, that's for sure. What you're aiming for is something kind of like this, where we have this office here, and you have those nice big monitors in the background, so people see they're being watched. And you leave those on 24/7, even if the office is closed. If someone looks in the window,
they drive by and see it, because then they know, this to me is the best marketing thing you can do, because the people then feel secure that their stuff is going to be secure. And I also believe that thieves don't come here because they know they'll get caught. They go to where the people who don't have cameras. So that's one of the reasons when you build a new site and build all these fancy bells and whistles, especially nice looking ones, that it helps you succeed in rents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those cameras and that system, over the cost of what you're doing, that is not a big investment. So get the good cameras, get the TVs. Now, when you're planning this, what does it mean for your planning? So you want to put in separate conduits underground from building to building. You're going to have power for your lights and that kind of thing in the buildings, but you need a separate one for the Cat 5 wire. I'm pretty sure building code requires that, but also there can be interference if the data and the power cables are run too close to each other. Like I said, you need to plan for where your network switches are going to be. So when you're planning your site and thinking about where these units are, if you're having someone install these cameras, get your camera installer into your planning up front.
You can obviously hear by you talking, you're so into the camera thing. And I agree that it is one of the, because we're talking about the management, but this is all the stuff beforehand, because it makes your life easier to manage.
Yes.
Because all I care about is that the phone doesn't call and somebody yells at me, okay, about something. And so that is why a lot of the things we're talking about here, at the next one, that you want to minimize the problem for the customer. And if you do that, you will benefit. And so if you go, there's a plethora of ways. You started out very small by yourself, then added a few things to be able to run it. I had a much larger one that I did.
But you've been doing this since 30 years ago.
Right.
So.
But I added more things, and now I'm training my children and how they run it. And then when you get more of the millennial thinking, younger people thinking that they want to have it all automatic. They're not used to talking. So you're going to want to try to add all these components to help facilitate, a better. And we're still seeing a lot of existing customers who are out there, existing owners who don't want to upgrade. I'm sorry, you're making money. Go spend some money and improve your site with these types of things.
Well, and having all these modern amenities is one way you really support the higher rates. And this is how you can
raise the rents.
And if you own the older site, you're going to get left behind in the rental rates if you're not adding these things too.
So there is. A lot of the things we talked about are different ways to manage, and I don't know if anybody has any particular questions for Steve and I that you can ask us, but in summary, I think that large people that have partnership agreements. You have 5 people, you're all going to be partners, and one person will be scared to manage it because the other partners may question them. They will go to the management companies to run it. Okay, that'll be what happens if you get this large partnership. If you have only you or one or other partner, hopefully you have 2, because then there's third that you have a majority, you may have somebody manage. And lastly, if you just own it by yourself, you might self-manage yourself. So the large projects typically go to a third-party management. Smaller, you might do it your own way. So, and there's a little tricks to what your product is, how important it is, because let's say you do climate control, there is more things you worry about because now you have hallway systems. Well, everything's outside. It would be fairly straightforward. But anything you want to add?
Any questions come in from asking our video guy here too?
Any other? How do you want to conclude here? What is your words of wisdom?
I think I guess the advice is to think about your planning well in advance for all these little details because you need them for construction. You need to make sure that all these things like trenching and the electrical installation and camera installation, you need all that into your loan, and you need to make sure that you've got those things lined up good and early. And
when people build, I see that mistake all the time.
Yep,
where the electrical comes in, and where that all the time.
Changes in your project are a big factor of what slows things down. If you come through the planning process and you know where your units are, you know where your driveways are, you know where this stuff is, that saves a lot of time. When an order is in for a building and you start changing the design of things, that does put a hiccup in things. So
whereas it's already shipped at the site and it's wrong, then that's a problem. But so these are things that you all got to look at with the management. Now we've kind of tied some of the ways we're building with some of the other webinars we discussed, but we're just, they all kind of filter and mesh together. But if you do have any other questions or anything, you can send us an email, either Steve Ajewski or myself here at Trocti Building Systems, and we will try to help you make a good decision in how to run your facility. And if you have any other questions, always feel free to contact Trocti, because our goal here is to make sure you build a successful self-storage facility that you can be proud of, that you can keep or sell or hold on like I plan for generations that are behind me. I want to thank you for watching this video, and hopefully you will have success in your self-storage endeavor.
All right, yep, thanks for watching.
All right.
Bye, everyone.